Welcome back, one and all, to week 2 of MERMAY 2021. I hope you all enjoyed last week's video. It's doing better than I hoped, and it seems like at least a few of you liked the combination of Pokemon and other character design subjects. This week, though, I think I'll switch things up a bit. I'm going to share the Pokemon design with you first, then dive into the Argyle Finch lore. I think after watching week 1's video again, it's too much of a tonal shift to go from the somewhat dark and eerie stories I've written for my other MERMAY prompts back into a cute Fakemon design. So let's get into that right now. This video will have a full week of prompts, 6 new mermaid designs, and 1 new legendary siren. This legendary siren was based off of the marine ecosystem of coral reefs. Probably the most well-known of any undersea biome, coral reefs are some of the most ecologically diverse spaces on Earth. Millions of different species, including fish, reptiles, invertebrates, plants, and microscopic organisms, make their homes here. What's more, coral reefs actually provide protection for the terrestrial lifeforms that live on the land the reefs surround. Massive waves from out at sea break on the reef before they hit the shore, preventing erosion and general damage to both humans and other land animals. But of course, as we all know, many of the world's coral reefs are rapidly dying. Change in water temperatures causes the algae that live within the coral to release toxic chemicals, and forces the coral to expel them to protect themselves. Without the algae, coral will often turn a ghostly white in a process called bleaching. This itself doesn't kill the coral, but it does make it very vulnerable to external stresses, and can eventually lead to the collapse of the ecosystem around them. There are other causes leading to the destruction of coral reefs as well, and while in some cases the colonies of animals can fight back, the amount of change is too great and happening far too quickly for the coral to adapt on a massive scale. Now of course, we already have a bleached coral Pokemon. 2, in fact, and I considered for a while maybe not going the morbid route of environmental destruction. However, as each of these legendary siren Pokemon would have their own song, one of Mourning seemed to fit the coral reef Pokemon. It's not dead, but the world around it is dying. It's grieving. I designed it to look something like a widow attending a wake, and the arm structures I introduced with the first legendary could work well to mimic the shape of someone clutching their chest in pain. Paying attention to the many different sizes and shapes of coral, I included a large hat made out of something like table coral. The colors I chose were intended to reflect its secondary typing, dark. I could have gone with Ghost, but again, it seemed too close to Cursula. Dark worked better in my opinion anyway, and as like I said, the Pokemon isn't dead. It's in mourning for the dead. In the end, I was happy with this design, and it actually might be my favorite out of the 4 sirens. Melucali, the coral reef Pokemon. In a short span of time, the natural coral reefs of the Maza region have begun to die out. In this time, sailors claim that a once joyful song emanating from the warm seas has since become somber and eerie. Scientists attribute this change to the Pokemon Melucali, who draws power from the life force and diversity of the reef. Its song is mournful and brings tears to the eyes of even the most hardened sailors. Alright seafarers, I hope you liked the newest legendary siren. It's actually quite fitting how dark, no pun intended, the design ended up being, because it actually makes it a little easier to transition into this week's collection of MERMAY prompts. They're actually, on the whole, a little less creepy this week than they were last week, but still on theme with that cosmic horror aesthetic of the world that I created them for. Alright, light your pipes and adjust your eye patches, we're heading back out to sea with old Argyle Finch.
It's easy to be intimidated by the likes of sailors. They project a hard and fearsome persona, and they enjoy scaring people to get their way. But 9 times out of 10, they're all bark and no bite. Same goes for many of the beasts what live below the waves. There was a time I was confronted by a creature so terrifying that the moment it threw itself out of the sea and onto the dock, I turned tail and ran, leaving behind a young girl who had been tailing me. I watched in horror as the thing reared up to its full height and bared its hideous jaws. But, to my surprise, that's all it would do. And the girl seemed to know it. She never once broke eye contact with the thing, and after some time it closed its gaping maw and slithered back into the sea. Hold your ground, sailor, lest you be made a fool of by a little girl who better knows the difference between a real threat and a big mouth. You spend enough time at sea, you start to accept that unsightliness should not be confused with unpleasantness. But sometimes, the two go hand in hand. Take, for example, Giuseppe, the pet name I designated to the most uncouth and repulsive animal in the seven seas. He's not just ugly, he's mean. Rude, brash, hurtful, offensive, there's no way to overstate his malice. I once saw him sever an anchor line with his teeth, then laugh as the vessel drifted off to sea, with no one aboard but a dog and a little boy. The beast has zero redeeming qualities. I hate him. Everyone hates him. And he's a dick. We live in an age of discovery. An age of science. People nowadays have an answer for everything. Who am I but an old man unable to acknowledge revelation for the sake of progress? I can accept that the world is a very different place now than it was when I first began my life at sea. But to dismiss the unbelievable as impossible, this is foolishness unfit for anyone who calls themselves scientist. What I've seen ain't illusion, no hallucination of an aged mind. I've seen their faces and I've heard their songs. True, by the laws of our reality, they might not exist. But in universes beyond our own, such laws hold no jurisdiction. What say you when our worlds collide? I'm not ashamed to admit that I get lonely out at sea. Only a man fool enough to believe his own lies could convince himself otherwise. Fortunately for me, company could be found almost anywhere, even in the murky grey depths. That is, as long as you're willing to accept it. Some of the beasts we snag on our lines, they're more than just chum. They love. They feel. At times, they've served as loyal companions, keeping me sane and helping me feel like I'm never truly alone. Still, to many men, they're nothing more than another catch to throw in with the day's haul. Suppose that's why I lost a taste for fish. Can't see how anyone could eat the things and not feel wrong. What does it mean to be deceived? Can a liar be anything other than malicious? Can you somehow justify their duplicity? Perhaps for some, it's second nature. I've known many to be more comfortable as someone they've convinced others they are, rather than as their true selves. But a lie is still a lie. And at the end of the day, someone will be hurt by it. Maybe it's my fault. Perhaps I should have seen it coming. And yet, even if 30 years ago someone had told me her tears were only a small part of her facade, I wouldn't have believed you. I was young. I was a fool. If only the lesson learned hadn't cost me so much. Fish can't talk, right? And if fish can't talk, we can't tell what they're thinking. Aye, but there are signs. Fish can't talk, but the sea, she has a voice. And she's calling out desperately to anyone who'll hear her. They come to us in our nets, helpless and defeated, willing to accept their fate so long as their message don't fall on deaf ears. But we ignore it. There's no time for that. Ain't worth the trouble. It's all in your imagination. Perhaps I have gone mad. Fish can't talk. But if what I've heard them say is true, the time for diplomacy is coming to an end. Fish can't talk. Humans won't listen.
Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, I hope you enjoyed the readings. Let me know if this format works better for you guys, or if you think I should try another way of integrating the Pokemon designs. Anyway, thanks again for watching, slam that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you all next week for the third Mermay video.